We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back from another video. In this week's Shoot the Sheev, we are talking about Star Wars: A New Hope. We've been talking quite a bit about the movies as of late, and we've actually been getting some exciting movie news lately too, so it's cool to be talking about movies. I have not told our special guest today this yet, but I actually name dropped our special guest 1 or 2 weeks ago.
Wow, I can't wait to see your special guest. I'm so excited.
Yeah, this is Jeff Powers. He's the guy that introduced us to Dungeons and Dragons. When we talked about the movie, I mentioned that you're the one that taught us how to play.
Nice. It's
He
an
ha
honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. He's been on here with us before as well, way back when the channel first started too, when we talked about the holiday special. So it's great to have you back here with us again. And now we went from talking about the holiday special, and now we're gonna be talking about the original. So a different pace for sure. So kind of what we do for these movie talks is that we, talk about what was our experiences with the films at first, just kind of, not necessarily in the sense of what we loved or disliked about it, but where were we in the world when this stuff was happening? That's probably one of my favorite parts of this, just so we can almost give a little history lesson of what our experience was. And then our second segment, we'll get some tough love in there, and then we'll talk about what we really liked, and then we'll wrap it up. So I know from when I was a kid, I still have the picture of when like the picture was taken when I got my first Star Wars box set of movies. And I've talked about in the past that I've actually used those, or I went through those movies so much that I broke them. The film would not work anymore. So definitely movies that I absolutely loved as a kid. And clearly they made a huge impression on me because we're still talking about it today. Jeff, you were telling us you had some pretty interesting stories about your first sightings of A New Hope and whatnot. So what was your first experience with it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of foreshadowed this story, but it's not going to be as exciting as I think you guys think. But so I'm a little bit older than you guys, and so I think I was probably exposed to Star Wars on VHS, probably mid 90s when it was kind of making a resurgence. But then I do remember seeing the special editions when they came out in the late 90s and 97. And then I remember seeing, prequels in theater, at least up to Attack of the Clones. I don't think I saw Revenge of the Sith. I mean, just for your audience at home, I guess, you guys are diehard Star Wars fans. I kind of am very partial to the original series, and or the original trilogy, and that's why I'm here for this, because I still love the originals. I didn't get as much into the prequels and everything, but I mean that is my history with it. And I lived kind of through that second resurgence. But I think the story that you guys are wanting to hear is I got really into the original trilogy around like late 90s, I think it was. And one summer, this is before Wikipedia was really a thing, but the internet existed. And I wanted to build kind of like a Star Wars Wikipedia database, but I didn't know anything about the extended universe and the books and stuff. So basically, it was just like me running through the original movies and thinking I was so cool to like know the names of the characters and know like all these little things about them, kind of like what people really do nowadays, I think more hardcore. But I sat one summer like in the dining room, we had our computer, and I sat and it was in front of the air conditioner, just like one of those in-wall air conditioners. And I just sat like in front of the computer and I would get so cold. And I took this like cardboard, like 3 panel folding thing that you make for like school projects. I think I'd done like a science project on there, and I like put it in front of me, in front of the air conditioner, so I could sit there for hours without like my left arm getting cold. And it was just the lamest thing. And I don't know how much time I wasted making this, but I never even like put it on the internet. No one ever saw it. It is gone now. It's gone into the ether of deleted files. But I don't remember anything like about specific weird characters and stuff. It's just, I don't know. I loved it. And so I'm one of those people who has decently strong opinions about prequels and changing things up and changing Star Wars lore. So yeah, that's my experience.
So just a question about, so you said that you saw, the special editions in theater. Was there any sort of like buzz about the films that you remember?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I think those trailers, still exist where they show like the kind of clips of all these different just iconic parts of the movie. And just I think the music just kind of plays over it, and it just says like fully restored, THX sound, surround sound, coming back to theaters, and it really amps you up. And um, I think it's good that they restored it. Not as good that they added back in some things to New Hope. I don't know. Last week, I know you guys talked about all the edits and everything, so we don't have to concentrate on that. But I like a lot of it. But so, just for example, when I did my rewatch, I actually watched the old original cut VHSs and everything in stunning VHS quality, just because I find a lot of those special edition edits put in to be very distracting. Not that everything's bad, like it looks glorious on like what you see on, Disney Plus and everything. But I get very distracted by the Hutt scene, that's edited in, and like just I'll sit there and go, oh, was that in the original or is that new? I don't remember. So yeah, but there was a ton of hype for the new footage and everything. And I think that is cool to see, what was removed and then added back in, and seeing all this extra footage. But I don't agree with changing a lot of it.
One other follow-up question I have, and this one might be a little bit harder. I don't know if maybe you'll remember this, but like, for example, when The Last Jedi came out, there was a big fan criticisms of the movie because of all the different stuff that happened with it. And nowadays with the special editions, there's a lot of people like yourself that feel that these special editions, shouldn't have happened. Maybe like they're almost like they're meddling. Do you remember, was the reception that way when people saw it, or was it more like, yeah, we're really excited for this stuff?
Um, I don't remember exactly. I know that as a kid, I was amped to see it in the theaters overall, but I don't really remember that. And, just to clarify for myself, I do think like a restoration and a special edition was needed, but Star Wars won Academy Awards for special effects and
Mhm.
best editing, I think, too, right? And so to change that up, I think just kind of does an injustice to the people who originally worked on it. And to kind of remove at least easy access to the original, at the time, I think was a little bit unfair. And I think people are still upset about it.
Yeah. Um, you said you watched the VHS tapes. We watched the despecialized 2000, I want to say 6 release of the trilogy.
Yeah, those
Um,
seem hard to find, I think, nowadays.
they are
Yeah.
and they're typically overpriced too. But yeah, I noticed a lot of things where I was like, that definitely wasn't is not in the updated ones. Like there's a lot of shots of the attack on the Death Star where it just looks like a model floating by, whereas like these special editions, they're moving around and doing a bunch of maneuvers. So it's uh, I feel like in that sense, maybe I like those types of edits. But like some silly things or like let's just add, one little thing here in the background. I could see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, it just seems like a distraction, and I don't think it's necessary. I think, no movie's perfect, and trying to re-edit it over and over, maybe in, Lucas's mind, he's approaching, more of what he wanted or the perfection that he's seeking, but I don't think it's necessary. I can get why he would want to, but I wish somebody would have talked him out of it. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Sarah?
I kind of had mixed feelings. I usually am a big fan of keeping things the way that they were and not really changing them. With the movies, very similar, for me in terms of like, why would you change it? It's the way that it's released. I don't really see other films doing this, or at least not widely advertising that they're redoing films like that. So it's very unusual and kind of unheard of, at least not popularly advertised. To redo some things that maybe like, okay, this was an editing mistake we should have caught when the film first released. Okay, that's one thing. But to completely rechange scenes and move things around and add in things like rocks to hide behind, R2D2, I'm looking at you.
That's such a
It,
lame change. Like, just leave it alone.
exactly.
How
So,
did he get back there when you see like just like a little bit of how does he get behind them? Whatever.
exactly. So it's things like that that I'm like, okay, well, that was really silly. Did you just change that just so that there's more to change so people don't think that they wasted $10 or whatever the movie price was back in that day to see the movie only for 30 seconds to be changed? Like, at least they got their money's worth. I don't
Yeah,
know. It's
I
just,
agree
it's
that money's
strange.
definitely a part of it.
One
But
thing. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, in terms of my memories when the movies came out, no, I'm just kidding. I wasn't born yet. Um, but my first watchings of the movies, I don't remember which one I saw first or in which order. I just know that the original trilogy is what I really grew up with. I didn't really see the prequels until I was a teenager, which was quite a ways after they had actually been released. So to me, the originals is where it's at. Those are my favorites and the ones that I will watch over and over. I'll have them on in the background while I'm doing stuff, cleaning or doing homework when I was in college and doing just other miscellaneous tasks because they're I've seen them so many times, it never gets old and they're just kind of easy listening. I can picture what's going on while it's happening.
That's how I tend to memorize the films. We joke about our Trivial Pursuit games.
Yeah, you got to get me on to do a Star Wars trivia between you and Sarah because
Oh,
I think it would be pretty good. I
we'll
got
be
some
talking
ideas
about it.
for it.
We'll be talking about it.
We'll figure out how to plan something. I have a feeling Jeremy's going to crush me, but we'll figure something out.
Yeah, we can. I mean, we could build like a full studio, get some podiums going. I think it'll be great. Now that you guys are making a ton of money off this channel, I think it could be done.
Oh yeah, tons of money.
You guys are
Um,
rolling in dough.
yeah. Sarah, do you remember what the VHS case looked like for the ones that you watched as a kid?
Ooh, I don't. I
They were gold or if they were more black?
I couldn't even say if I first watched them on VHS versus DVD, to be
Oh,
honest.
because the reason why I ask is you know, being together for so long, I know what your opinion was about the prequel trilogy and the reasons why you had your opinion about it. I'd be curious if you had grown up on the tapes that Jeff was showing us that were before the special editions, and then if you saw the special editions, if you'd have the um, same reaction to it. Because really it's a lot of digitizing, and that was one of your main criticisms of prequel movies.
I have seen the Disney Plus versions of these films quite a few times. Um, and when we were going through the special edition edits between, the original films that I believe I grew up on, or at least some of the things seemed familiar. So I'm not sure, to me that there's such minor changes that I never really picked up on them until we really nitpicked and went through each one.
Gotcha. One of the things that I can share about when I was a kid, that's in relation to A New Hope, is as a kid, I really didn't like A New Hope. And the reason why actually kind of plays into something that we've mentioned on the channel before. I mentioned on the channel that Attack of the Clones was the first time I was disappointed as a Star Wars fan as a kid, because the lightsaber battles at the end were nowhere near what the Phantom Menace was, like with Darth Maul and stuff.
I think you just also had strong feelings about sand. That's
Yeah, I
that's what
did.
I'm picturing in my mind.
Coarse, rough, and it gets everywhere.
Yeah.
And A New Hope didn't really have a lightsaber battle that compared to episode 5 and 6. So what I would use episode 4 for was my sleep timer at night, and I would use it to fall asleep as a kid. So that's another one of my memories as a kid of what I would use the fourth movie for. I ruined episode 5, like the tape. Episode 6 had some jumpiness. Episode 4 was pretty intact, needless to say.
That I find that amazing, because just rewatching last night, I had forgotten how fast paced the first movie is. I mean, it's just it's cutting, between scenes, those going back and forth, especially between the Tatooine stuff versus cutting back and forth to Vader and Leia. It's so fast paced. I feel like that'd be hard to fall asleep to. But I guess once you watch something over and over enough, it just kind of, you get accustomed to it.
Yeah. One of my fun facts that I really like about A New Hope is I'm blanking on his name right now. I have a mind fart. The guy that plays Tarkin.
Uh, Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing, yes.
I couldn't think of his name either. We
One
got
of my
there.
favorite things about Peter Cushing is that when they were filming the movie, his boots never came in because he had really big feet. They had to get custom made boots for him. And because he never got his boots, they had to film from his waist up. So if you think about it, every time that he's on camera and he's on the Death Star, technically he's in his slippers because he just
Nice.
wore whatever was comfortable.
Nice. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure a lot of, yeah, I mean, he was a pretty, or I would say established, well respected actor at the time. So he probably could have done whatever he wanted, and people would have been like, whatever. Between him and Alec Guinness, they can just kind of get away with it.
Yeah. Well, it's more or less one of those things, like once you realize it and you go back and watch it, you're like, you're right. They never show his feet.
Well, I mean, how often do they show like Vader's feet? There aren't really a lot of wide shots, in the Death Star. So,
No, but there's a handful of scenes where there's either hallway scenes of characters walking through hallways, or like when Leia's in one of the prison cells and they show Vader entering the prison cell. That's kind of a more wide shot.
okay. Yeah.
But there's not a ton, but a handful.
Can we talk about, I thought you were going to reference the shot of Leia in the little prison when Luke comes in and she's just a total babe sitting on that bench.
A little tall for a stormtrooper, or short, a little short for
Yeah.
a stormtrooper.
Disappointed in you, Sarah? No, I'm just
I misspoke. I knew what it was.
Yeah.
Not editing out. Oh, also, so the scene where Vader comes in and he brings the droid, If you have not seen the Bad Batch yet, we actually get to see how that droid is used in the Bad Batch. So make sure to check out that show to see, what does that truth serum actually do?
Yeah, spoilers. It's actually a volleyball that they repurpose. That's what I've heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, space volleyball. Don't you know it?
Yeah, with a needle.
We need a live audience in here to laugh at my jokes, I think.
I need to get a soundboard. That'd be
Yeah. Yeah. The sound will be womp womp.
yeah, it would be good. All right, so that was our little bit of how we were exposed to the movie, what was our thoughts growing up. And so when we come back, we'll talk about some of our tough loves. So stick around. Have you seen The Mandalorian? Do you wonder what Operation Cinder was that they mentioned in the show? Well, we got you covered because we have an entire playlist dedicated to the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, which highlights Operation Cinder. So if you check out our playlist, you'll be able to see what actually happened with Operation Cinder and know what they're talking about with the show. Now back to ours. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are here to talk about some of our tough love for A New Hope for us. It is part of the original trilogy, so I don't know how much we're going to have tough love for, but I'm not opposed to talking about some feelings about maybe some of the edits that happened with the film, because this is just talking about the film in general. So, I can say the bringing Jabba into A New Hope, I thought was a cool idea, because originally he wasn't actually in the film, but then they used old footage to bring him in with CGI with the special editions, and then they tried to make him look a little bit better with another rendition. Like I think it was either DVD or the Blu-ray set, can't remember which one. But I thought it was kind of cool to have him in there. That way they can kind of establish who Jabba was. But at the same time, he looks terrible in the film. The CGI, I feel like the new CGI is worse than the old CGI. Do you guys have any opinions on that? Have you seen both of them?
I'd have to see them side by side.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen both of them, and I mean, I kind of disagree with you, Jeremy. I'm not a big Jabba inserting fan. I respectfully disagree with you, I should say. I've just always kind of felt like it interrupts the flow, and if I'm recalling correctly, when they edited it out, they purposefully added in Greedo's dialogue in an alien language so that he could do the same exposition. So we get the same information twice, so I think it's kind of unnecessary, and the CGI looks bad, and I think it's cool to like share that deleted scene that Jabba was originally there, but just put it as a deleted scene at the end of, the DVD.
Jeff, I will tell you here on the podcast, you just changed my mind. I
Really?
totally agree. I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't make the connection between the Greedo and Jabba basically saying the same thing and how it's like double dipping, and the fact that Jabba looks like trash. Yeah, I changed my mind right here. Right
I
here.
did it. Here we go. Yes.
Yeah.
And also, I love Greedo. I wish they were, obviously he gets shot, but like I wish they were. I love his like little alien language. Oda wita solo. It's so good. Yeah, it's so good, and I love the design of him. Yeah,
I thought it was interesting how, like, obviously there's the talk about who shot first, but just the way that it was shown kind of evolved too, because when Sarah and I were watching the despecialized version, it was just like Greedo exploding, like a big thing of smoke in front of him. Whereas when they
Like you
edited
saw
it,
the gun smoke.
yeah, later on, it was like a shot back, like backed away, so you could see Han and Greedo, and then the shots are fired off. So they
yeah.
completely even did the angle. So
That little edit that they do with Han shooting first, and like they like digitally like make his hand kind of move, and like, it just looks so bad. I don't, yeah. And I mean, we don't have to dwell on, Han shot first, but like, I, the idea is, they don't want to show Han Solo as a killer,
Right.
because he is a hero at the end. But the thing is,
He's also a scoundrel.
yeah, the thing is, people change, and like that's part of his arc, is that that's a savage moment for him, and then he starts to change by the end of the movie. I mean, he's complaining with Leia for all of their interactions and stuff, and you could tell he's kind of a jerk most of the time, but he makes the heroic decision at the end, even if it is like maybe a money decision, or like a cred decision, but um it's part of, I think it's an important part of the story arc that they changed with his character, and I think that's disappointing.
I'd have to agree with that. I didn't really think about it from that way. But I think that's a good point.
Yeah,
One of the things, oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh,
No, I
all
was
I was
gonna
gonna
change
say,
topic. Go ahead.
all I was gonna say was that, I understand the movies are for kids, and to have like the hero kill somebody is not exactly a good example for kids. But yeah, why change it? It was good how it was.
You
Don't
see,
change a good thing.
this is why we get a third perspective here on the podcast. We got that outside source. Sarah and I
Yeah.
are shacked up together in a house. We have the same opinion. And we got Jeff Powers here making history.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a purist and elitist, and people can think of that what they want, but the movies were good how they were. And I grew up with special editions, and that's what I knew. And it wasn't until, I started, hearing about the changes and going back and watching the originals, that I just went, you don't need to make all these little things, like a restoration in terms of video quality, and a restoration in terms of things like the effects on the speeder and things like that. Or we'll talk about this probably when we talk about Empire, but I love the change to the color in Cloud City. I think that's a very cool thing that they did. um but for the majority of the changes, it was not necessary.
Yeah.
One of my pieces of tough love slash questioning is I find it very strange that, okay, so at this point, when this movie came out, didn't really know who Emperor Palpatine was. Like, we didn't really have his backstory. We didn't really know what he looked like. We just knew he was somebody in charge because they would talk about needing to go talk to him or something, right? I've always had it in my mind that Vader was like his right hand man or like his assistant or his apprentice. So why is he taking orders from Tarkin instead of it being the other way around? Because at one point he's choking some guy out and Tarkin tells him to stop and he listens because he basically is, one step below Tarkin, and it just doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's due to the fact that maybe not everything was completely pre-planned. Um, and it seems like in that the original movie, that Vader is meant to be an enforcer. He is. I think Tarkin is in charge of the ship, and when you're on that ship, you're gonna listen to Tarkin. Now, obviously, Vader could, kind of do whatever to him, like in terms of he would win in a fight, but in terms of getting the job done, I think it's in Vader's best interest to just let Tarkin do his thing. But I agree with you though. Like in terms of like a pre-planning, you would probably have just Vader in charge of this of the ship.
I suppose you could also say that with number four, maybe he still has like the slightest bit of him that's not 100% evil, because if he was, he wouldn't have bothered to listen. He would have just choked the guy out on the spot and not even cared.
Could be.
But
Yeah.
I can I don't have a definite answer, but I can maybe bring some color to the idea. Tarkin was a bruteful man. He grew up basically his dad was very hard on him, and he was raised to fend for his own. And if you dive into the comics a little bit, he is seen where, like, if he's having a conversation with you and you do something wrong, he is envisioning like just gutting you and just leaving you for dead. But because he has people around him, he can't do that all the time, so to speak. So I think with him being in charge, like he was put in charge of the Death Star when Krennic, died on Scarif. Like you were saying, Vader's an enforcer. He's not like the leader of the Empire. It's the Emperor, his minions, and then if Vader needs to go take care of something that's out of hand and the other people can't handle it, that's when he's supposed to go in. So because Tarkin has so much respect and such, a high reputation already, I think that's why, Vader didn't need to be the one in charge. And again, like you said, he's just the one to take care of business if things go down. Just like, there's an attack on the Death Star. They send out Vader because they know he's like one of the best pilots in the world to go take care of things. So
That's a good point.
That, yeah.
my
I mean,
input.
so that kind of actually brings me to kind of a little bit of tough love, which is actually, I was thinking about Vader's coming down through the trench and everything. And I mean, he's hailed as like this, I think Obi-Wan or Ben, whatever, explains to Luke that, his father, was one of the best pilots in the galaxy, I think he says maybe. And obviously we don't know at this point that they're the same person. And I don't know if even that was pre-planned, whatever, but I don't think Vader really sells himself as such an amazing pilot.
Could
And
it
I
be
get that.
because he's mostly robot?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe, but I think, I don't know, maybe I'm just being too picky. It's honestly, it's hard for me to find a lot of things wrong with original cut, at least. Obviously some of the effects are really great still, but some of them don't hold up. Maybe that's a nitpick, but yeah, I don't know. Rewatching the trench flight, it's still so awesome. Like it's just so great, that like point of view shot going through. But there's little things in there that are a little weak, and I think it adds the tension, because if Vader just came in and just destroyed everybody, that's not fun. But at the same time, like, I don't know, getting I don't know, maybe this is too much of a nitpick, but I felt like with the Millennium Falcon coming in and just, spinning him off into nowhere, I feel like Vader could have outmaneuvered that. But maybe he was concentrating a lot.
I also think that at least based on what I've seen in comics and whatnot, well, I guess the movie was made before all the comics, but uh, it's definitely shown in there that he could have handled all the people out there on his own and still have been able to go back to the Death Star because he was that good. Um, I don't like to make excuses for what would happen in the story, but I guess one thing that I would put out there that's thought provoking is that maybe Vader's ability to be the best pilot was limited because he had to keep focusing on the people in the trench, and he wasn't
Yeah.
able to go and like destroy everybody. That's my guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're in the middle of gunfire and flying through this tight, thing. And yeah, it just feels to me like if Vader is being sold as this ultimate force almost, I guess pun intended for, the force would really, but I think it really just boils down to these are movies, and like in especially the original one, not everything was maybe planned out as maybe we can see in retrospect. So I feel like Vader was a a lot more, I don't want to say flawed, but vulnerable maybe is the right word. Like, you know, I'm just thinking of like that scene in Rogue One where we finally see like that full force of Vader coming
Hmm.
through. Um, like that doesn't feel like the same Vader that we get in this original movie.
Yeah, and that's the Vader I want to see more of. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because yeah, he is very, very powerful, and that scene really showed it a bit more. But yeah, it's almost like he turns into a teddy bear for the next movie.
And you could say the same thing with the Kenobi show too, and how brutal Vader
Yeah,
was in that.
I don't know if you watched Kenobi, but there
nope.
were some scenes in there about with Vader where it was like, this is why he's feared across the galaxy for the things he's doing. So I don't know if I don't really want to spoil it for you on here, but um,
Yeah,
We'll just leave it at that.
yeah. I
if
mean, the thing
anything,
that I love about Vader is that introduction, right? That's one of the best introductions we get to any villain ever. Is just when they blow open the door and those, you know, stormtroopers come through. It's the first time you're seeing this, and you're like, "What is this?" And then this very tall, you know, helmeted, caped man comes through, just puts his hands on his hips, and it's just, oh, it's brilliant. And just, I guess the thing that I think of is that scene shows that Vader is so powerful that he doesn't need to do things himself. Like a good boss or whatever gets people to do other things for him, right? And that's kind of what makes him pretty scary. Not only his costume design and his voice and his breathing, but just the presence of what he can just have other people do, just the domination that he shows. You know, it's subtle, maybe not in his choking, you know, scene, but like you just get this feeling like he could take down anybody, and
yeah,
he doesn't need to demonstrate it. You just know.
yeah, it's interesting because um, when we were talking about the Mandalorian also on this channel this week, and there is a scene from the episode where there's this character that's supposed to be coming into her own and becoming a leader of a big group of people. And there's a scene where she's trying to like get people's attention, and they're just flat out ignoring her. And like with Vader, if he walks in the room, you're going to immediately pay attention to what's going on. So that kind of, you know, shows to his presence of, you know, he's going to basically demand respect as soon as he walks in the room. Whereas, you know, we're seeing even characters today in Star Wars where they can hardly even get people's attention just by talking to them. So, um, yeah, definitely makes him one of the, um, in my opinion, bigger and better characters of Star Wars. Arguably one of the greatest villains of all time.
Yeah, I would say that's an understatement. I think he's yeah, I think maybe the best character in Star Wars. Just iconic, and yeah, I mean, original trilogy Vader is just out of this world. Every scene he's in, he dominates,
Mhm.
and his arc is good. Um, it's great.
Yeah. So that was our tough love for A New Hope.
I have one more tough
Oh,
love.
one
Sorry.
more?
And maybe this is I guess every tough love that I have is kind of balanced by I understand why they did it, and it's part of kind of the storytelling. But can we talk about how whiny Luke is at the beginning? I the moisture farm and like just how whiny he is. And I get it. So the balance to this is I hate whiny Luke and just how annoying he is, but it's balanced because that's part of his arc. He starts as this very innocent, you know, small. Well, I don't know how big Tatooine is, but seems like a pretty remote planet, and he has big aspirations, and he doesn't want to do his chores, and he's just like a whiny little brat. but it's balanced by one of the best like subtle shots in the movie, which is when he comes back to the farm and you see like those brutally burnt corpses of his aunt and uncle, and he looks at him stunned and he looks away, but then he looks back with this just like look of intensity, like, I'm not looking away anymore, I'm going to fight this. And that's the moment where you just see that switch, and that's good visual storytelling of just something switched and changed with him from innocence to, I'm part of the real world now, or I'm part of the real um, conflict in the galaxy. You know, I love it. It's great. It's just such good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that scene in particular because there's a lot of times when Disney or Lucasfilm before Disney bought it, when they make trailers that are trying to show off either just the original trilogy or the Star Wars story in general, that's one of those scenes that's like in every single one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those shots of Luke with the horizon and like the sun setting, I think, are just iconic. And you see the wind blowing across his I don't know what you would call it, not really robes, but his little outfit that he wears. Art is so great. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, did you have one more?
No, I was just air quoting your tough love because
Yeah.
most of the tough love
Yeah,
really
like I
was.
said, I think all of our tough loves are, we understand why these things are in place, and they're part of the story.
Yeah. It it's a great film. It's hard to, like you said, Jeff, it's hard to, pick a legitimate I hate this in the film. So, um, yeah, that's just what it is. That's what happens when the films are so good.
Well, and
So
this was the first one too, so the bar really hadn't been set yet.
Yeah. We have a guest. This is
yeah,
Charlie. Hi, everybody.
sometimes Axel makes his appearance too.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was our tough love for A New Hope. When we come back, we're going to be talking about things that we really like about A New Hope. And I'm sure that's going to be flushed out quite a bit because there's so much cool stuff from the film. So stick around. Have you ever wondered what Amazon coffins are and what they're full of? Well, we got you covered here on the channel. Check out our playlist of our Amazon coffin unboxings, where Sarah and I open up boxes that have Amazon returns, and we share with all of you what we get in each of those boxes. If you ever wanted to get into liquidation and want to know what types of things you can find, check us out. Now back to our show. Welcome back. We're here to talk about our favorite parts about Star Wars A New Hope. What do we got, guys? What's some of our favorite parts in the movie?
I
Sarah,
love
go for it.
Leia's sassiness. She is
You
not
would.
taking anything from no scoundrel, no nerf, scruffy looking nerf herder. I don't think she even says that in this film. I think that's in a
No, I
future
think that's
film.
Empire.
Yeah, that's on fire.
She
But
does
it's all right.
call
But I don't
Chewie
care.
a walking carpet.
Yeah.
Yes, a walking carpet. You call this some kind of rescue? I think is one of the things she says in this one. And just the way she's trying to take charge of her own rescue because these guys clearly aren't just doing it.
I like it when she's like, man, you made your way in. Have you thought of a way to get out? When they're all pinned down in the prison cells.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leia's great. I mean, I wish there were a little bit more female characters. But yeah, Leia's good.
Another one of mine, besides Leia being awesome, is the cantina scene. The whole he doesn't like you, I don't like you either. Just that whole dialogue montage of, well, be careful. No, you'll be dead.
Sometimes we
I just
reenact it.
it's classic for me. I think it's funny and fun at the same time, and the characters look ridiculous. Between you've got the furry guy with like the spider looking eyes, but then he's got like the oversized human chin looking weird thing part of his face, and
You're
then
talking
the
about the
other,
butt chin?
yes, and then the other guy that is like half human, but like he was in a chemical disaster, so his face is messed up.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe his species or character, but I don't know. The whole scene, it's crazy.
He has like warrants out for his arrest in 12 systems, right?
Yeah.
Got the
Yep.
death sentence on 12 systems.
I love the aliens in the cantina. I think I talked about this on the holiday special. A lot of them are in one of the scenes in there. I think they just reused the costumes, but there's like Wolfman, and then there's like Satan is there.
Hmm.
It's just so good. Yeah, I love that stuff.
Then you got the actual Cantina band too.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
classic song.
yeah. And I mean, I already said this. Greedo is a great design. Just, I don't know who originally designed those costumes, if they're part of ILM or not. I think ILM only did those other special effects, but those costume designs are so good. It's like the bounty hunters in Empire are also very just distinct aliens, and yeah, it's so good.
It reminds me of not so much a part about the film that I love, but something of like, when I was growing up with the films that I remember is that so I collected Star Wars action figures, but on the much smaller scale, like the little 6-inch ones. My dad
I've seen your
had a
Ewok
lot.
collection.
I do have an Ewok collection. It's awesome. Um, my dad used to collect the 12-inch figures from like the original ones. And one of my favorite characters to play with, because all of his were unboxed, so we were able to play with them as kids and whatnot, was Greedo. I loved Greedo. He was one of my favorites. I
Yeah,
didn't even
I
know
mean,
who he was when I played with him, but he just looked so cool.
nice. Yeah, I think Greedo kind of has that like Boba Fett syndrome, where it's like he's such a cool like design, and you don't really get a lot of time with him in the original trilogy. Um, but something, there's like a backstory almost like implicit in just the way these characters are.
Yeah, I like a lot of those aliens too. And it's interesting, like with some of the new Star Wars projects, how they take like this alien that was in that bar and try to give him a little bit of life in some of the shows, like in the book of Boba Fett, the mayor, his species was in the bar, the one where he kind of looks like he's got this long mouth, and then it comes up and he's got his eyes up at the
Yeah,
and he kind
yeah,
of speaks through his like
yeah.
gills.
It's
That's
like
also how they use them. Yeah,
yeah, it's so good.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like how they. That's one thing I can say that I really like that Disney's been doing is giving some life to these cool characters that um, were in the original, but we really don't see them. I would say some of the other things I really liked in the movie. I love the Death Star battle. It was really cool to see even some of the stuff that like inspired George Lucas to do all those different scenes. We know that George Lucas is very much inspired by, I think, World War II films specifically, if not just war films, but also Japanese samurai films. And you can see a lot of that stuff even just in this film alone, let alone obviously all the other Star Wars films. Um, but it's cool to see how he was able to apply some of his inspirations into the film. I think that's really neat, being able to get that behind the scenes and then a new appreciation for some of the stuff that he made choices about.
Jeff, would you like to share one?
Yeah. So I mean, I think, I mean, I like the whole movie. Just, I think it's one of those movies that just can't get much better. So it's hard for me to pick, but I think we haven't really talked about C3PO and R2D2 that much.
Yes.
You know, I think, isn't it that like they're the only characters that are in all the movies, right? I think that's a thing, or at least all in the nine kind of
Yeah,
movies.
they're definitely in
Um the
Skywalker.
trilogy of trilogies.
Yeah.
But I think like 3PO and R2D2 have like the most screen time of really any characters in this movie. And I just, it's almost like a buddy kind of hangout thing with them, and I love it. Just the kind of sass of R2D2 that's like implied, and then like the just anxiety of C3PO, it's such a good balance. and I love some of those. The comic relief is very well done. Just like when they're in the trash compactor and Luke is just like screaming his lungs out for 3PO, and it cuts back to them like at the board, and you hear he's just like doing whatever, and then R2 beeps at him, and he's just like, oh yeah, the comm, I can just use the comm to talk to them, and he's like, Master Luke. And then, oh my god, it's so good. um there's also the shot in the Falcon where it's after they are shooting the TIE fighters. Nice shot, don't get cocky. And they're all just so happy about it. And then it cuts to like that shot of 3PO and like all the wires. Good stuff. It's so good. Oh, and there's also, I forgot, the trash compactor. The funniest part of that is where when the walls stop and they all start like cheering for it, and it cuts back to 3PO and he just goes, oh, R2, listen to them dying. It's so good.
Curdling screams.
Yeah,
3PO and R2 are such a classic dynamic duo. It's funny. There's times where Jeremy and I have often compared ourselves to those two, and I'm
I know
curious,
which one
Jeff.
is which.
I was just gonna ask, which one would you say is which?
You are totally the sass of R2.
I am surprised you say that.
No, you are totally the sass of R2. Just hearing you talk about Leia just now, I was just like, I know why Sarah likes Leia so much. She's a sassy woman in charge. I don't know.
Typically, I find Jeremy to be the more sassy one, and I'm the more literal one, which is
True.
why
I don't live with Jeremy. I've heard his work sass before.
So just a quick side story. Sarah told my boss one time that my superpower is that I'm sassy. So and you know what? Boss confirmed it.
Yeah,
well, they said if
know.
Jeremy has one superpower, like currently has, what is it? And so I was put on the spot. I didn't have any time to prepare.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I don't see much of the anxiety of like 3PO in either of you guys. You're both pretty sassy. You're R2 and R2, basically.
A lot of Jeremy's sassiness has rubbed off on me over the years. That's what happens with someone.
Yeah, that's what happens when she gets tired of it and she gotta dish it back. I had one and I like forgot about it.
So sorry to interrupt you, but while you're thinking, we haven't talked about the music yet. So I also talked about the music in the holiday special. That's something I think is often lacking from like a lot of modern movies. Is some soundtracks nowadays just sound generic, and I suppose with older movies it's the same thing. Like the lasting movies usually have a lot of good sound and scores and everything, but that John Williams score is, I would say, the best of all time. I was trying to think of like other iconic ones that just have, there's a lot of good themes, but just an overall score throughout the movie. The music is like a character unto itself. I think of like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings also has a really iconic score throughout them. And you can kind of just hear it in your head whenever you think of it. But man, nothing compares to Star Wars. I don't think I can really say anything that hasn't been said about it, but the music just carries so much of it. It would be a completely different movie if that music wasn't there.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those songs where like if you just played it randomly, if you don't have a reaction to hearing that song when it just hits, definitely would question.
Even if you've never probably seen Star Wars, like it conveys so much. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant.
I did think of what I was gonna say earlier, because we were talking about all the cool creatures in the cantina and whatnot, and there's a creature we haven't talked about yet that I really, really like from this movie, and those creatures are the Jawas. I really like the Jawa. They're the little minions. They're basically minions before minions was a thing in a way.
Can we all do our little Jawas sounds really quick? Wootiti.
OTD.
Oh, Sarah, you can do better than that. Yeah, there it is. That was good.
Yeah, our favorite one that I didn't get to I didn't hear it because the Zoom box was on us.
Oh no. Okay, here it goes. Ready?
There's one that just like says that really, really like staccato.
At
So
least twice.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
all the little alien sounds and languages are so good. Like, I mean, the sand people have that like grunting that's like really gross, and like all the little well, the alien languages in the cantina. I already did my Greedo impression, but yeah, it's all great.
Okay,
That's the stuff I like about Star
I'll
Wars.
give you the I was almost gonna say sand trooper, but no, the sand people, right? Ooh, ooh, ooh.
It was good. It was good.
now we just have to do it like
There's
they
also
did.
that sound that Obi-Wan, sorry for cutting you off, but it he makes that like growl sound when he's like scaring away the sand people. I think that gets like changed, right,
It
in the
does.
special editions. But the original one is like terrifying. I don't know what that sound effect is that they use. If it's just like some animal that they edited. I don't know. Do you guys know what that sound
Okay.
is?
I know what it is in Star Wars. I don't know what they did to make it, if that's what you're asking.
Um yeah, I
Jeremy
guess
knows
either
what
is it.
he knows what the sound is supposed to sound
Oh
like.
yeah, so it's like, is he imitating a certain monster then?
Yeah, he's imitating a crate
Oh,
dragon.
Great Dragon. Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you guys did talk about that last week. Hey, if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch it. You guys did mention that, I think. I forgot.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
good. While we're on sound effects, there is one other one that I really enjoy. Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I think this is the movie where it came from. Uh,
Oh,
The Scream.
I don't
The
know.
Wilhelm scream?
There's a very classic Scream that I think came from this movie, though I'm not 100% sure, but it has been used over and over and over throughout the decades.
Yeah, the Wilhelm scream that happens when Leia and Luke
Yeah.
are about to go across the bridge. And she here, I don't know if it's Luke or Leia that shoots him, but yeah, he falls and he goes, ah! Yeah, I can't do it. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I don't know where that originated actually, but you're right. It's I think that's also a Lord of the Rings connection, is I think the Lord of the Rings have at least one in every single movie.
Of that Scream?
Yeah, I think so. Because it's like a Peter Jackson like trademark that he always does in his movies, I think.
Interesting.
Um, but
Did you
yeah,
have
it's
a
in
name
so
for that
much.
Scream?
Wilhelm.
Okay, I will Google it while you guys
Yeah.
discuss,
Mhm.
and I'll find the origin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
those I don't so Jeremy, do you know how like those sound effects for things like the lightsaber or like the trench, like, or like X-wing sounds and like all the different gun sounds and stuff like that? Do you know where any of those were created?
so there's a couple of things with that. Part of me has tried to not look them up just so it doesn't kind of ruin what the
Sure.
sounds are. But I do know one of them that I can share. The blasters is them banging on a power line.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think that's so interesting. How they do that kind of, what's it called? Foley work. Yeah, it's so good. I feel like I've said that over and over. It's so good, but it really is. I mean, everything about this movie is really inventive, and um, just clever how they put all this stuff together. And it, I'm assuming it's a pretty big budget, but they did a lot of what feels like small budget type stuff, and it just holds up. It's great.
So that Scream,
Yeah.
according to Google, it originated in 1951 in the film titled Distant Drums. So I guess it didn't come from Star Wars, but that's okay. Star Wars has it in there and I like it, so it
Yeah,
makes me
probably helped to popularize it.
Yeah, because whenever I hear it, it goes right back to Star Wars.
Yeah.
All right. Was there anything else we wanted to mention in this segment?
good.
uh of just like the things that we really like.
Yeah.
Um, should we talk about Porkins? Um, I was
What about
texting you
Porky?
last night, just, I always cry about over Porkins' death. I mean, he was just, when you join up the rebellion, I mean, maybe he was, in it for fighting for something he believed in, but just, yeah,
Don't they all?
he probably had people who loved him, and I hope he was celebrated for his sacrifice, and all of the squadron that flew.
Yeah,
Let's all take a moment to remember them.
I'm gonna say oh, well, most of them did die in that battle, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
that's true.
I mean,
Yeah,
you made it out.
I know it's like a big celebration, but I mean, throughout the movie, probably billions of people died, right? Between Alderaan and
Yeah.
then the Death Star. Who knows how many people are on that? Because it's like the size of a small moon. Um, there's always that joke of like, are there like, well, I guess it's more in Jedi, but the contractors, on there that are probably just tradesmen who got hired in, and you just think about it blowing up. I shouldn't be laughing about this, but yeah, Sarah's looking at me like I'm just insane.
That's because
You know what I
most of
mean,
them I
though.
thought were slaves, just like Galen Erso.
Oh, are they slaves?
I don't know if
Who's
they're
Galen
slaves in the
Erso?
technical sense, but like Galen Erso are basically you work on it or you die.
Okay, I don't know who that is.
Rogue One.
Rogue One.
Rogue One. Okay,
He's the guy
He
that.
he
sorry. I think I've seen Rogue One once. I think we'll
he
have
was
to watch it with Pete to change my mind about the movie. For the viewers at home, I really didn't like Solo in the theaters. One, because I could like barely see anything, but also I was just, I don't know, I kept getting like taken out of the movie. But we watched it with our friend Pete, and he was so optimistic about it. Totally changed my view on the movie. I love it now.
Fame.
So we got to watch Rogue One with Pete. Maybe he'll give me a different insight into it.
um just real quick, Galen Erso was the one who uh made the secret default or error in the Death Star so that it was able to be blown up because he was forced to work on it and he didn't want to. And so he knew if he didn't work on it, somebody else would. So he worked on it and created that flaw on purpose. And that's how the Death Star plans eventually made its way to Leia. Like he didn't know
Okay.
Leia, but that's what the plans were that they were after, is the plans that Galen Erso made.
Yeah. Well, we saw CGI Carrie Fisher right at the end of that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. He's played by Mads McKellen. I think is how you pronounce his name. He is a
Oh, yeah. Okay. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's a pretty famous dude.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't prepare. I didn't study for this. I just watched, original Star Wars. So
Oh, I just looked it up.
okay.
His name. So I
So
was like,
anyway,
I could say all the different movies I've seen him in, but I feel like it'd be more efficient to just say his name. All right, and then we got one more segment coming for you where we're just going to kind of wrap it up, some last minute thoughts about the movie. So stick around, and yeah, we'll have some closing thoughts on A New Hope. Have you ever wondered what it's like to grow up during the prequel era? Do you wonder what type of merchandise was around then? How different was it than it is now? Check out our videos on this channel where we talk about the merchandise of The Phantom Menace and the merchandise of Attack of the Clones. They are here on this channel. The Phantom Menace is my first video ever on YouTube, so there's a special place in my heart for that one, so please, if any, check that out. Now back to our show. All right, welcome back for our final segment here where we kind of bring things together, maybe some things that we forgot we wanted to mention along the way. Let's kick it off. Jeff, what would you like to do for some closing remarks?
Yeah. Yeah, we were just talking when we took a break here. As if I haven't talked enough. I forgot to mention that, well, just overall, I love the design of the ships. Industrial Light and Magic, their effects are just incredible, those models and everything. But I think we can all agree, like the Millennium Falcon is one of the most iconic ships and models of all time. Just the design of it, even though it is just a piece of junk.
Which is
But
interesting. I don't know.
yeah,
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Just a small
how
little
dare
fun
you?
trivia thing. Believe it or not, you know the Tantive 4, the ship that Leia had in the very beginning, like the overshot,
Oh yeah.
that was originally supposed to be the Millennium Falcon, but they said it's too
Oh,
generic. So they were like, well, we'll use it as a frigate, but we need something else that's more like
really?
eye-popping and unique.
Huh.
And then they came up with the Falcon.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just I guess talking about the beginning, of course, that opening shot of just the visual of the small ship and then just that crawl of the Star Destroyer coming through and just you basically seeing that shot, you understand just about all you need to know about the Empire and their power and their dominance just in that physical presence of that ship. Um, but what I was going to mention about the Millennium Falcon is I cannot imagine like being in the theater originally, that shot when they jump to hyperspace for the first time, and you know the stars kind of uh I guess kind of like turn to lines, right? And then it just shoots forward and you see like the back of it and it kind of spins a little bit. It's so beautiful. I mean, I get chills just thinking about it. I think that overall, just to kind of transition into wrapping up, I mean, for so many people, Star Wars is just part of us. It's part of childhood and subconscious. And I was mentioning you guys have heard all my stupid impressions of all these different parts. It's quotable. Um, it's ingrained in us, and Star Wars is part of me. Especially this original trilogy. I love it, and I get excited about it every time I talk about it.
And we can definitely like even hear your passion in all the different things that we've been
Yeah,
talking about. So
yeah,
um yeah, Star Wars is it's amazing. It is like they say, it's a culture. It's what brings a lot of people together. I know there's, you know, some bad things happening in Star Wars right now with fans, but ultimately, if you walk up to somebody and you see, you know, like a Star Wars shirt or a Star Wars pin, you kind of know that you're a part of the same group. You know, it Star Wars is essentially like a family. One of the things that, like when Sarah and I were first dating, she didn't have a lot of exposure to sports, and one of the things, like if I was wearing a Red Wings sweatshirt or a coat, random people would walk up to me and just start talking about Red Wings. And I feel like that's the same thing about, you know, Star Wars. You could very easily just walk up to somebody and be able to have a nice conversation about something you both love. And because it's so universal, it's really powerful in that way to bring people together.
yeah. And just like being a family, you know, sometimes you argue.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody's going to agree about everything in Star Wars. You know, I disagreed already with you a little bit in this, but I guess I don't know what's going on with the Star Wars community right now, but just remember to respect other people's opinions about Star Wars. You know, you can love whatever you want. It doesn't hurt anyone to love the new Star Wars or dislike the old ones or not like the new ones. You know, we're all in it together. Just like what you like and go move on with your life.
Yeah. I wish it was that easy for all the junk that's going
Yeah,
on.
I mean, maybe I'm being a hypocrite because I had talked earlier about how um I don't like the changes and like it was unnecessary and stuff. But hopefully, I'm trying to convey that it's a respectful dislike. It's not like George Lucas took away something from me. They're
Yeah.
movies, you know, and we love them, but ultimately they are movies. Yeah,
So
what do you
I'm
think,
gonna bring
Sarah?
up something that's a little uh less full of heart than what you guys have been talking about about
I'm
this
gonna
movie
bring down the
specifically.
emotions really quick. Sorry, guys.
I completely
Let's
agree
be
with you guys. Do not get me wrong, but I feel like there's not a whole lot more that I can add to what you've already said because you've
Yeah.
kind of already said it. But something about this movie in particular that I forgot to mention earlier, slash was kind of saving till the end, is Jeremy pointed out something to me in the final scene where they're getting their medals that I thought was kind of interesting. And when they have the very wide shot showing the whole crowd, like before they zoom into them actually getting the medals put on, you can see a good at least 1/3 of the crowd on each side of the screen is just painted pictures of people. Like static 2D painted pictures, not even just extra people that they found down the street to just stand there. So I thought that was really weird.
I've
But
never noticed that.
it's so subtle. I'd never noticed it before either, and I don't think Jeremy had until this playthrough either. So I thought that
No.
was
Movie magic, right?
Yeah. We watched
Yeah.
it. I saw that and I was like, there's no way those are real people. Because they just look like smudges as in correlation to everybody else that was on screen. And I know for a fact that later on in Star Wars, they really started to use paintings as part of their filming. The prime example is in Return of the Jedi with the hangar. That's a painting. It's not a bunch of people standing there. So this could have been like the early testing of doing that.
Yeah.
It makes me curious if on the Disney Plus version, because I haven't paid that close of attention since finding this out, if that was something they edited in, because I don't feel like it'd be that hard to just throw in some random crowd people, you know?
Yeah, and animate it.
Yeah. Plus Chewie doesn't get the medal, and I still don't understand why, but it's interesting and weird.
I was thinking about that last night when I was watching. I don't think it's as big of a deal. I get why he deserves one, but I think in this movie, Chewie is kind of treated. I don't want to say like a pet, but he isn't treated as like being really more than anything than like a sidekick to Han, right? He hasn't really been developed as having much influence, in what he's doing. So I think the idea is you're giving these medals to like the primary kind of leaders. Um, I don't know. That's how I would kind of justify it. But he deserves one for sure. Like,
I would
right.
think maybe it's a mix between I'm not sure that Luke understands Wookiee to be able to understand what he's actually saying. I know Han does, but I'm not sure that Luke does. And they mention when they're playing the hollow chess that he'll rip your arm off if you make him lose. So they might be a little scared of him too. Not in terms of the medal, but how you said like he's not a big decision maker. I think they might be a little scared of him.
Yeah, maybe. Well, wouldn't that be more reason to give him a medal so that he doesn't act out?
Yes, but also if they can't understand him, then it's kind of easy to make a decision without him because they can't exactly ask for his opinion.
Sure. Yeah.
I was trying to look it up real quick. Like, was he in the Millennium Falcon when Han saved him? And he was. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That adds even more to it. I was trying to find some sort of, well, maybe this was it, but I got nothing.
Maybe because he wasn't the main pilot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
Anyway,
Leia just couldn't reach his neck.
They just didn't
those were
have
just a couple last little clip snippet things that I thought were worth sharing. So
Yeah, and I will say, because it was the first time I had ever seen it and we had ever seen it, my guess is that it was a painting, but if it's not, wow, interesting. Just based on the way it looked. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just they're just sleeping is all it is.
Yeah.
It was a long day on set and they needed a rest.
well, you can tell there's a difference between like a certain chunk of people and then there's like one actual person towards the back of that chunk of people that looks like it has a lot more detail to it because it's a real actor compared to the rest of the picture.
Yeah.
Good
I think
stuff.
it's
All right. Well, that was our discussion on Star Wars: A New Hope. We talked about, what was going on when we were, first getting, our feet wet in Star Wars, really, all the different angles that we had. I think it's super cool that Jeff got to experience these movies in theaters for his first time. Like the special editions, yeah, they were a little different, but I feel like that's something that would be very incredible that you can't really replicate once you've seen them. It was a huge thing when it first came out. Even just like you said, that opening shot blew people away. And I know you said it kind of set the precedent for what the Empire's power was, but I think it also really set the precedent of what this film's power was going to be. So I think I would throw that in my tough love, as I wish I was younger and I could have seen it way back when.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. We will be covering the rest of the original trilogy and beyond. So, and we also have quite a few of these videos already up. So make sure to check those out. Drop us a like if you like the video, and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on A New Hope. If you've seen the originals, if you've seen the special editions, you know, what are your opinions with those? Also, if there's something that you agree or disagree with what we said, throw it in the comments. We'd love to see it. And then before we go, Jeff, thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you in our future videos, because we got you lined up for a couple more too, and I'm really excited for it. So
I'm excited. I'll be back for Empire discussion and Jedi. Empire, one of my favorite movies. Jedi, I like, but I think Sarah and I will disagree on the Ewoks, and that should be very exciting.
and then I'll tell you a couple of things that you might find really fun about some video games that reference the Ewoks in a little bit here. So
Oh no.
and probably when we talk about the movie too, because it's really cool. But yeah, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Ah! I had to try.